on, and Bridget will come on also. I see Bridget
I see you
on.
do.
Congratulations. So, wonderful people out there uh, viewing my live broadcast. This is actually Bridget a moment because she's the moderator here. I'm a guest, but because of technology, we had to find a way around it. So I hereby turn over to you, Bridget, to start this
Thank
discussion.
you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Nyanway.
Thank you.
And God bless
Yeah.
you. And on today, we are observing Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. And we are just so happy that Mr. Nyanway is with us. Mr. Daniel Melvin Nyanway is the Human Rights Officer for the United Nations of Liberia. And oh my gosh, it's been an honor for me to connect with him. And he is taking up the mantle that Dr. King have left off. And we're just so proud of him. And you know, Dr. King was such a great man. He was a man of God and he loved others. He wanted to see others progress and to succeed. And he was the driving force behind so many different movements here in the United States, such as the Montgomery bus boycott, the March on Washington, and the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. And, you know, globally, he was known all over the globe. And so I'm just so excited. He was the youngest man to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And we're just so excited to be observing his birthday on today. And so we want to thank Dr. Daniel Melvin Yanway for being with us. Did I just give you a title?
You just gave me a title I didn't deserve.
Well, we're gonna speak
but
it into
but we,
existence.
I receive it. I receive it. I receive
So
it.
thank you so much for being here with us on this very special day. And so we're gonna just turn it over to you and just let you talk to us about how Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had an effect on your life.
All right, thank you, Bridget. It's so wonderful being with you. I mean, you've helped to inspire my journey. This is an opportunity that I've always wished for, to have the opportunity to speak to the larger society, to a global platform on the issue of human rights. And as I said in my first conversation with you, human rights is everybody's business, and human rights has no borders. So when we speak in human rights, and then today discussing Dr. King, we are talking about those forerunners of advocacy, those who taught that the need for freedom, the need for justice had to be prioritized. And it's written in the Bible. I say that I'm a Christian, you are. Uh, Write your vision, make it plain. I mean, there are so many persons, there are so many advocates who bury their vision. And because they bury their vision, no one today recalls their name in history. And sometimes maybe it is their dream we are living, but because they did not speak their dream. And so no one ever thought that they dream about what we have today. So I got a philosophy that once our program begins, maybe our audience and followers, you should also know that Bridget and I have agreed to launch this human rights in the church,
Yeah.
right? We're discussing the church and human rights, and this will be a year-long event for the initial stage, monthly. And I have online, I want to recognize Adama Kiatama Dempster. He's one of Liberia's well-known
Okay.
advocate. He's online with us also, so you can see that the issue of Dr. King is very important. I hope Adama will join us when we begin our discussion on human rights and the church. He is also a Christian from the Bethel Church, and he's an active advocate in Liberia, very well known one. So thank you, Adama, for coming on. But let's get to Dr. King. Dr. King, the man we are celebrating today. Um, Dr. King is one of the human rights advocates, one of the human rights defenders that is now recognized in the work that we do because his voice transcended tribal lines. His voice transcended religious lines. a voice transcended or color, educational status. And that is why the basis of human rights is all about. It's about dignity. It's about freedom. And one of his famous speeches is that of the dream. I have a dream. And when you read that I have a dream, I've read it from high school up to where I am. We were in class and it was brought in as part of our lessons. We had to memorize that, I have a dream speech and do it. We did. We had to memorize it and do it in our test. So we all had to sing, I have a dream that one day we will be free. And the lines were just, in our minds afterward. But when we came to the professional scene, when I came to become, a devoted human rights advocate, a human rights officer, I got to see that the lines in the speech, I have a dream, the message is all about freedom and dignity. And when you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the first line talks about dignity. All humans are free in liberty and dignity. So liberty talks about being free. Dignity talks about being able to live without fear, without intimidation. And so coming to Dr. King, he built his momentum on others that have set the stage. You talk about the great Mahatma Gandhi, who took up the initiative in India. You can call so many other leaders around the world, even in Africa. We had our own Martin Luther Kings along the way. But what different did Martin Luther King show, unlike some of these other advocates, is that it was non-violent. His approach was non-violent. And that is the basis for human rights. Human rights is not about violence. Human rights is about freedom without violence. It's about expressing your opinion, expressing your like and dislike in a sober, peaceful fashion. And that's what Dr. King laid for. And Dr. King's message to the world, not only to the people of America, because when you see his line, he spoke all about Mississippi, about the rest of the United States, but that line was running to Liberia, because Liberia needed a dream. Liberia, like America, was founded by free slaves, and those free slaves came to Liberia and practiced exactly what they borrowed from the United States. They came here, they denied the indigenous, and even those indigenous that were incorporated had to be incorporated based on favor, based on your contact with these people. Like America, it was not all blacks who suffered during the slave trade. There were some blacks who benefited one way or another. But at the end of the day, what was good was the good for all and not for some. And so the advocacy, when I read about Dr. King, I heard he was from a middle-class family. He was not from a downtrodden family. But he spoke for the downtrodden. He spoke for the downtrodden. He saw himself in the ghetto. Yeah. He saw himself in the trench. But that was not where he was. He was a middle class. So when we speak of human rights, it is void your status. Dr. King, I heard he dropped out of school twice, but then he went to earn a doctorate degree, and beyond his doctorate degree, he was a preacher. Yeah. So he used a religion to get people to be able to stand up for their rights. And then when everyone follow the teaching of Dr. King as it has been done, we can see that the world becomes a better place. The world becomes a better place because if not for Dr. King's message, if not for Dr. King's dream, where we have had a Barack Obama becoming president of the United States of America. I come back to Liberia, if not for Dr. King's dream, where we have the trend Liberia have now that I'm going to give you in a few minutes' time, following the dream of Dr. King. So Dr. King's dream, Dr. King advocacy connects directly to what the world is experiencing today. Today there are revolutions all over the world. People are revolting, people are rebellious. Why? Because Dr. King once said that truth buried. we rise again. So no matter how long you suppress people, these people at some point in time will break out the shackles and will stand up for justice. And so human rights is about ensuring that these people do not stand up for justice and will cause destruction and death, which is outcome when people begin to rebel. So why not sit up and sort out differences, respect for each other, respect for the space that we've given God and not by men? Because remember, it was God who said, "Let us make man in our own dominion." Now we are misusing our dominion. We not only destroying mankind, but we also destroy it. We see climate change. We see environmental degradation. It is done by man. The same man who God has given dominion over the world. And when someone gave you dominion, they gave you the management authority. And so at this point, Dr. King's dream is directly in line with God's own mandate to mankind. That going into the world, multiply, have dominion over the world. It means manage the world for your good. Live with your fellow man. But then that power is now being misused for the have and the have not, the educated and the uneducated. And we are all made in the likeness and image of God. And so when we come to human rights does not see your color. Human rights does not see your educational achievement. Human rights does not see your country. Human rights see your dignity, your worth as a human. And that is what Dr. King stood for. That is why he lived for. That is why he died for.
Amen.
There are several advocates who follow Dr. King's dream, who follow Dr. King's teaching, and they have made changes in their countries. Some follow it from a violent point of view, because again, I say, truth crushed to the ground will rise again. They were suppressed, they were inhumanely treated, and in a way of fighting back, they came from a violent or standing, but yet they changed their country. And that is why we need, as every man, as every person, from every pulpit, from every mosque, we need to begin to teach basic human rights principle and tenets. Because when we do that, then we begin to teach non-violence. When we do that, we begin to teach early warning for violence. Because then we will know, then we will predict that there is something negative that will happen if we continue what we are doing. And I say to many times of my people that human rights advocates, human rights officers, human rights defenders, we are not the ones making the change. Why? We are speaking the change. Because when human rights professionals begin to think that they are the ones to make the change, then they turn into politicians, they turn into community, negatively, they begin to impact the society because it is about them. But what Dr. King's message was, and what the entire intent and premise of human rights is not about us. It's about the world. It's about those around us. It's about environment, our economy, our people, those who we do not know, those who we are not related to, but for the fact that they are humans. And in a Christian sense, when you speak from a Christian perspective, because they were made in the image of God, and not only in His image, but in His likeness. How can you like God and hate His likeness? You love God, you pray to God, but you hate God's likeness, God's image. When I see you, I see God. And so if I must see God in you, I must respect your values. I must honor what you live for, what you stay for. And if there is any reason why I should correct you in a sober manner, in a much more much more reflective picture of the reality of my own existence, because thinking, what would I appreciate if I had been in that situation of this person? That was what Martin Luther King stood for. Do to others as you wish them do to you. Because he knew that during those days, the laws that were made against the blacks could never be honored by the whites. If we must look at some heroes in the back, Rosa Parks, she refused to stand up for a white, because a white will never stand up for a black. So do unto others as you wish them to do to you. If it was a white man seated or a white lady seated, would she stand up for a black man or a black woman to be seated? No. So those people stood up for what they believe should be an equal right, an equal justice, an equal society, a dignified world, a dignified society. And that is the premise of human rights. Dr. King spoke of voting. And at some point in time, he said, gave us the ballot to vote. But he also said there were others who were given the ballot to vote, but they had no reason to vote. Why? Because you cannot just allow us to vote for you and do not have the opportunity to be voted for. So indeed, there were some blacks who had the right to vote or had the opportunity to vote, like in New York, according to his message, but they had no reason to vote because they were voting in a line that was being detected. Wow. And nobody's opinion should be detected. You should have a freedom of opinion, freedom of thought, freedom of association. And that was Martin Luther King's message. And that message is resonating, is alive to the rest of the world. Is. And it's resonating here in Liberia. I can tell you that drawing the line of Martin Luther King to Liberia had made two significant history that set the premise for liberty, freedom, justice, and equity. What did we do? Liberia voted the first female democratically elected president. That was something that would have never happened years ago. The 1847 Constitution of Liberia, and Dr. Martin Luther King spoke about the Constitution in his message. He said the Constitution is a check given to the citizens of the nation. It is a check that assures you that this is a check you can now go and encash. You have a freedom of your own. And so if the Constitution violates itself, then it's a blank and unnecessary check, an unsigned check, an unendorsed check. And that is why when we make our constitution should be subject to legal interpretation in a court of independent, competent jurisdiction. So that is why people should be able to challenge the Constitution and say, this is the promise that was given to us generations ago, and we want to challenge that we are not benefiting from this promise, from this check that has been given to us, according to Dr. King. And so when we come to Liberia, our Constitution of 1847 did not allow women to even vote. A part of the Constitution says every man you should have a property. You should own a property before you vote. That was our 1847, Liberia 1847 Constitution. Say a man with a property right. And I can look to show you the exact lines there. So that Constitution was highly discriminatory, written by a group of people who had left slavery, who had suffered slavery, who had suffered suppression, and had come to enjoy freedom to the detriment of other humans. A total contradiction of the intent of the movement is the African Colonization Society to Liberia. They were moving free slaves to Liberia. But those free slaves that moved onto Liberia borrowed from their slave masters and began to apply what Dr. King strongly spoke against the native. And I can drive you down Liberia history lane, which is a history lane that today we all do not want to remember, where we had great lights, Liberia to have our own revolutionaries, the Bacchus Matthew, Tipo. You can list them in Liberia. They were strong voices against the level of discrimination, the level of central control that was being ruled at the time in our country, the governance style, the structure at the time, that if you can be the brightest of all, if you do not have connection to the top, you will not have a platform to expand, to aspire for your greatness. Today, we can, if you look in Liberia, if you do a research on Liberia, Bridget, you will see that Martin Luther King dream is living in Liberia. We have persons in status who could have never, ever dreamed of being people of status in Liberia.
I think we're having some issues. I think we're having some connection issues. Okay. I'm
Bridget,
here. We're there.
Are we there?
I'm here.
You're
Yeah.
getting me?
We're there.
Okay, we there.
Yeah.
So as I said, there were several who laid and followed the steps of Martin Luther King. And these people live in the light of human rights, because human rights is the foundation for freedom and justice.
Amen.
And the message of Dr. King was freedom and justice. Human rights talks about obligation of government. What is the obligation of government? To protect and fulfill human rights. And Dr. King talks about the sacred obligation of government. If government around the world, if states around the world do not keep their sacred obligation of promoting, protecting, and fulfilling human rights, they stand a chance of rebellion. And no matter how long it takes, there will be a rebellion, and rebellion leads to destruction. Destruction of life, destruction of property. And that is what we are preaching as human rights advocates, to avoid destruction of lives and property. If we all begin to respect the rights of every human being that we encounter, regardless of your sexual orientation, regardless of your color, regardless of your language, regardless of your religion, then the world will be a better place.
Amen.
Then the world will not only be Dr. Martin Luther King dream for America, but it will be Dr. Martin Luther King dream for the rest of the world.
Amen.
And as we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King today, I want to say to the rest of our followers, our listening audience, that you can be that Dr. King. You might not mount the pulpit in Washington, D.C. You might not mount the pulpit at your own Capitol building, but in your community, you can begin to preach the message of freedom and justice.
Amen.
You can begin to report violations and abuses right in your backyard. And sooner we will have a just society, because everyone will be a part of the decision making. And that is the problem of the world today. When people feel left out, when people feel abandoned, then Dr. Martin Luther King's dream comes into reality.
Amen.
Amen. In Liberia, when people were being accommodated because of their closeness to the authority, they refused it. They refused it. We read through the lines where Dr. Martin Luther King was being encouraged to be incorporated into the status quo. He rejected it.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm X, we can remember him as one of the strong advocates of the universe today. He was encouraged to be incorporated. When you begin to speak out, when you begin to make the difference that the world needs, you will be encouraged to be incorporated. But when you are encouraged to be incorporated, then you should know that you are
Amen.
having impact.
Amen.
Because if you were not having impact, you were never going to be encouraged to be incorporated.
Wow.
I also want to say on this platform, we have Uriah Spo, one of our strong advocates in Liberia. Also, he's the executive director of the Independent National Commission on Human Rights. He's also following this live program. And I have also, I see Marco Tuan Sie. He is the priest of the Episcopal Church. He ran for the bishopric in Liberia. These people have added their voices to advocacy in Liberia and are making Martin Luther King's impact on the work we are doing in Liberia. And so that is why I'm recognizing them, because when we begin our series of human rights discussion, these are some of the prominent individuals that we will invite on to ensure that they share their experience with us. How do their work impact their religion, and how their religion is inspiring or affecting the work that we do. So I just wanted to make that that is where we are going. But coming back to Dr. King, a very great man. We celebrate Dr. King not because of what he said, but because he lived by what he said.
He did.
Many times we see advocates in our society, they advocate so well that when the time is offered them to join the status quo, they are on board. And they abandon the advocacy. And people who are believing in them, people who are giving their time, people who are giving their life to these people, professional services, these people's hopes are dumped. And then they get frustrated. And then it becomes a challenging situation for those who come after them. Because Mahatma Gandhi did not dash the hope of the Indians, Dr. King was proud to mention Mahatma Gandhi as part of his legacy. Because Dr. King did not drop the hope of the black in America. That is why Nelson Mandela and others who refer to Dr. King as a foundation that inspired them in their journey. So you see, when you get into human rights advocacy, you do not know who's watching your steps. You do not know the change you are making in the little communities. And so if you drop the ball and join the status quo, you are destroying unknowingly millions who have believed that you were that.
Amen.
And because Dr. King did not drop the ball, because he did not join the union of half to abandon the half-not, that is why today kings are celebrating him. That is why today villagers are celebrating him. So he is celebrated in every sector of the society.
Amen.
And I'm excited that I can be a part of discussing Dr. King. I can be a part that I'm a young man. I didn't see Dr. King. I heard him through the recordings that were left by him. I read his note, I told you, in schools. But I'm living Dr. King's dream. And there are so many other persons in the world that are living Dr. King's dream. That one day our own country, my country, Liberia, as we are progressing, and no one make a mistake that when the change is there will be hurdles. There got to be hurdles where you have 3, 4 different people, different thoughts, different education, different tribes, different religion sitting around the table. You will have different ideology get on the table. But what matters is that these different thoughts are analyzed in a peaceful, accommodating, non-discriminatory environment.
Amen.
When people feel heard, they feel satisfied, they feel achieved. But when they are in a position believing that no one is hearing them, they will throw stones to be heard because they want their attention. And humorous is a non-violent career path.
Amen.
And as I told you a few days ago, humorous is not for a particular group of people. Humorous advocacy. We heard of Dr. King. We heard of Mahatma Gandhi, a politician, a social activist. Dr. King, a pastor. Malcolm X from the Islamic Brotherhood. So humor transcend religion or status quo. Rosa Parks, she was not a doctor degree holder, but she made that change. So even the educated and uneducated can become humorous advocates, can become change makers, and can make that difference that the world needs.
Amen.
And so, as we celebrate Dr. King today, Liberia has its own. We have our change. We continue to preach for change. I told you about Liberia making history with Dr. Salif, the first female president, something that could have never happened. Today, we are celebrating dozens of natives being in a hierarchy of government, being in a hierarchy of government. Today, the Speaker of the House of our country is a native. Is a native. The President of our country is someone who came from a football field, a soccer pitch. A few years ago, when I was much younger, I used to play soccer. And my mom used to tell me, my dad used to whip me when I come from the soccer pitch, that soccer is for street kids. I cannot play soccer. Today, do a research on soccer. They are millionaires. They are entertaining the world. Why? Because they were given the space to do what they know best. Sometimes we are not given the space to do what we know best. That is why we do what they want us to do.
That's good. That's good.
And that's merely a path of humorous advocacy. Sometimes you have a girl child in your house, and that girl is meant to become a great engineer. But in our African society, we believe that the girl child should be a great cook, a great home taker, a caretaker of the home. When you do that, then you are a best girl child in Africa. Because you know very well how to cook. If you don't know how to cook as an African woman, then they say you fail your role as a female in Africa. But we have some very good male that are cook around the world, not to talk of Africa. But before people were given the space to do what they know to do best, you could not dare be a man to go in the kitchen and cook. Your parents will not allow that. That's just an example example of giving people the space. Today we have females flying
Amen.
planes.
Amen.
You know that.
Yes.
Today,
Yes.
my wife is a pastor. We have females mounting the
Amen.
pulpit.
Amen.
That could never. Are you there, Bridget?
Like we haven't. I'm here.
Am I live, Bridget?
Yeah, we're okay.
Am I
You're
okay?
okay. Yeah, we're okay.
So I'm saying that people, when given the space, can produce the best in them. But when they are not given the space, they are directed the space, then they do what is not the best in them, but the best that you want to come out of them. And sometimes it's just not the best that is
Amen.
in them. Sometimes it's just not the best. And we want a Martin Luther King dream, not only for America. We want a Martin Luther King dream for Liberia, for West Africa, for Africa as a continent, for Asia, for Europe. We want a Martin Luther King dream that will not only be a dream of celebration, but a dream of reality that we can live.
Amen.
A dream,
Amen.
a dream that we all can build our own dream upon. Because I too have a dream. I too have a dream. And Martin Luther King's dream is a foundation on which I can build my dream.
Amen.
And for the rest of our friends and colleagues that are viewing, as we celebrate Martin Luther King today, my inspiration to the rest of all of us is that our little corner should begin to experience our dream. Our little corner should begin to experience our dream. Before Martin Luther King stood for the I have a dream message, before hundreds and thousands of people, he stood in a room and inspired a handful of people who believe in him. And those handful of people took the message to hundreds of people who grasped the message and took it to thousands of people who also grasped the message. And today we are millions who are living that dream. So do not feel I'm in my little corner. This is not my business. I'm on my little pulpit. I'm a pastor for a little church somewhere down Alabama. It's not my business. I can tell you that people have stood on Dr. King's shoulders like he stood on other shoulders. As we're celebrating Dr. King today, I'm from the African Methodist Episcopal Church. We can look back and celebrate a man, Richard Allen, who walked out of a white church and said, we cannot sit in the back of the church. And today we have the AME Church. Richard Allen did not go to a football stadium to open a church. When he walked out of the white church, he went to a goldsmith shop. He went into a goldsmith shop. Imagine, from a goldsmith shop, now we have African Methodism throughout the world.
Yes.
Your change doesn't have to start from a football stadium. Your change doesn't have to start from a classroom field or a community field. It can start from just meeting 2, 3 persons and narrating your dream. Because it is saying your dream that will make others to know and analyze and get inspired. And I say, when you know it, say it. Then the change you want will make it. Because in our community, we see violence, we see abuses. But we say that's not my business. And we expect the government to come into our communities to act. And when they fail to act, then we say, oh, the government is not doing their work. But it starts from you as a citizen. It started from a Martin Luther King. It started from a Martin Luther King to make America discuss a black president, at least to talk of voting a black president. It will take you who's viewing this live discussion. It will take you just speaking to your next door neighbor that will change that community, that will get that community together working, that will get that community together advocating, that will get that community together pushing for the change that the entire country needs.
Amen.
It will begin from right with your conversation with your neighbor. And I'll leave it up open for Bridget to make some comments as we roll to the close of our time together. I'm sure we have a nice time. But I want Bridget to talk a little about how have she been inspired for a few minutes, because I when I talk of Dr. Martin Luther King, and I find myself in a role of human rights advocacy, human rights protection, human rights promotion, I see me living the dream of freedom. I see me living the dream of fighting against discrimination. I see me living the dream of supporting the work of others around the world who too want to see the Martin Luther King dream survive in their own environment. And let no one doubt that there will not be problem. There will be problem. There have to be problem. Because, you know, our mothers, my mother used to say to me that tongue and teeth, you know, tongue and your teeth, they are in one space. They will fight. But they cannot leave that space because they both appreciate that space.
Amen.
And so as Christians, as world leaders, as advocates, as parents, as teachers, as doctors, as lawyers, as engineers, as pilots, as janitors, we should make use of our space by impacting positively the space that we find ourselves and advocating for more space, because when we have a much more free space, then we can inspire, then we can dream big, and then we can become great.
Amen. Well, I really appreciate. Oh, that was so. I was just listening to you, and I was like, this is what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was wanting us to do. And you know, we have, as a community, we have somewhat dropped the ball through the years. But I think it's time for us to pick up that mantle again and to move forward. You know, you and I, we have started this partnership in helping bring awareness to human rights. My mission is domestic violence awareness, human trafficking. So we've decided to join forces and take this globally. With just a mission on helping others. And so anyone that's out there who would need more information about domestic violence, economic impact of human rights, how it impacts the economy, please stay tuned. Because once a month, at least, we're going to have Daniel Melvin Nyanway here with us. And he is going to bring us some great information on what we can do in our communities to help people help
to
others.
help people,
And
help
so
others.
I'm just
And
so
so
inspired
I'm just so
about
inspired
you and
about
everyone that's in
you and
Liberia and
everyone
what
that's
you're
in
doing.
Liberia
And I
and
really
what you're
believe
doing.
that we can
And
make
I
an
really
impact
believe that we
globally
can make an impact globally
and so I'm just
Yeah.
so
on.
excited.
And so I'm just so excited.
And I believe the
Yes,
church,
Bridget, you
And
got
I
that right.
believe the church,
yeah, I believe
Yes,
the
you got that right,
yeah, I
Bridget.
believe the
I believe the church is
I believe the
important,
church
very
is
important
important, very
in what our
in
mission, our
what
goal
our
is,
mission, our
because
goal
it
is,
starts
because
at
it
the
starts
the
at
church. It
the church.
starts
It
with God.
starts with God.
And I knew
And I
that's what Martin Luther
knew
King
that's what
Jr.,
Martin Luther King,
being a
being a
pastor of a church,
pastor
he
of a
was
church,
able
he was
to
able
get
to
his people to
get
rally around
people to
what
rally around
his
what
ideas.
his
And,
ideas.
but the main thing is they
And the
trusted and
main thing
believed
is they
God.
trusted and believed
When
God.
they
When
marched
they
across that
marched
bridge in
across that
Selma,
bridge in
they
Selma,
took God with them.
they took God with them.
They didn't care
They
what they
didn't
had to
care
face
what they had
because
to
they
face
knew God was
because
with
they
them.
knew God was with them.
And so that's what we're going to need
And so that's
on
what
our
we're gonna
journey.
need
We're going to
on
need
our journey.
people
We're
who
gonna need
know that God is
people
with
who
us
know that God is
and
with
the
us,
devil
and
cannot
the
take
devil
our
cannot
children.
take our
He
children.
cannot,
He cannot.
He
because
cannot,
we have
Cannot.
to fight for
we
our
have to fight for our
generations.
generations.
Yep, 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 yep. So we have this program that we're going to start, as you said, once a month. And today we are discussing Dr. King because of the celebration. But when we start this program, we're going to begin to discuss climatic human rights issues. We will be discussing different human rights topics. We might be discussing the Constitution, goes back to Dr. Martin Luther King's message about the Constitution. For us, Liberia, chapter 3 of our Constitution, and from Articles 11 all the way to Article 26, it discusses basic fundamental rights. So we'll be looking how has this Constitution, you know, this check given to the people of Liberia, how has this check proven to be a signed check? And how has people challenged this check, government commitment, government obligation to this check that have been given the people of Liberia, that says that all Liberians, all men are equal in Liberia, all are equal under the law. How has this been proven over the years? And we'll be discussing some of that. We'll be discussing also our own issue about climate change. What has climate change done to Liberia over the years? Is it only about the West, or when they talk of climate change, what can Liberians and the rest of Africa, the rest of the region, do to begin to, combat climate change? Environmental degradation, is it only happening in the West? What is happening to our forests? What is happening to our mines? We go into business and human rights where we hear people are digging or trench. They are digging trenches looking for gold, digging under an entire community. What is the future? What's going to happen if for any reason that community begins to sink? What happens to the people, the inhabitants of that environment? So there are a lot that we're going to be discussing over the year. It's monthly. We'll try to stick to time. We've been finding problem difficulties with our own internet. I don't know. Maybe we need to find a way and get some IT expert to help us because I'm not good at IT. Maybe here I will check from my end and then you can
Okay.
do the same. Let's see how we can be, well connected. And many times our listening, our followers come on and we are unable to, start on time. They leave. My brother-in-law was on earlier, and other folks came and they left. So I think we should work on the
Okay.
communication part of it. Let's see how we can have our program in time and we can get out in time because many times we do it during working hours. Also, I run out for my lunch to be able to address the issue and go
Oh,
back to work. and
Oh,
the back and forth will have me to run into my lunch. I hope my office won't get me punished for using office hours, but it's all about Martin Luther King, the dream, and it's part of my job because I'm a human rights officer and I'm preaching human rights. I'm inspiring people to respect and promote human rights, and I think that's part of my job. So my boss, I want to thank him for the work we do here in Liberia. You talk about the office. The office in Liberia has been doing very well. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, that's the UN Human Rights Office in Liberia. It is headed by Dr. Ichena
okay.
Emeloyi.
Okay.
He's the head of the office here in Liberia. Currently, we have our acting deputy. She's Danai Kuchka. She's from
Okay.
Zimbabwe, and
Okay.
the country representative from Nigeria. So you can see human rights.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
Nigerians, Liberians, and Cameroonians. We are all in one room advocating for the kind of change that Liberia needs and the kind of human rights protection and promotion that Liberia needs. So, I'm trying to bring this to say that in our own space,
Mm-hmm.
we are going beyond, religion. We are going
Mm-hmm.
beyond nationality. We are going beyond gender.
Mm-hmm.
Danai Kushka is a female. She's our acting deputy. My boss is a male. We have others who are also here, and we are all working together, not looking at a
Mm-hmm.
gender disparity, but we are all looking in one lens, and that lens is promotion and protection for all Liberians and all
Amen.
residing in Liberia. And we are strongly
Amen.
supporting the Independent National Commission on Human Rights and other partners, civil society.
Mm-hmm.
And the aim
Mm-hmm.
is that human rights first, human rights last. And I'll tell you that uh, I had a conversation a few days ago, and we were in some professional conversation, and I told my colleagues that human rights, basic human rights principle surpasses all
Mm-hmm.
professional lens, all professional career. And I had some financial experts in our gathering, and one person in the gathering asked me, "What does human rights has to do with me owning my assets?"
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Wow, yes, a very professional colleague." He said, "If I own a table, what does human rights have to do with me owning a table?" I said, "Right to property.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Right to property.
That's
You
good.
have the right to own that table, and no one should deny you owning that table, and no one should deny you owning a particular table that you can afford. That's your right to property." And as professional this colleague was, as high educated financial expert he was, he did not know that human rights has a lot to do
Mm-hmm.
with assets.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you and I need this kind of
Amen.
discussion. Because
Amen.
right now we have pastors following, we have doctors following, we have teachers following. We also have street guys following, just people out
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
But they all have a role to play when it comes to the promotion
Amen.
and protection of human rights.
Amen. And people don't realize
And so
it
we
until it's taken
realize
away
it
from them.
until it's taken away from them.
exactly,
We take it
exactly,
for granted
We
that
take it for
we
granted
can do all of
that
this
we
stuff.
can do
But
all
what
of
if it's
this
taken
stuff.
away?
But what if it's taken away?
exactly, exactly. I always tell people, and I had this, when I have this human rights seminar, I think I told you from the beginning that we had this president of one of our higher learning institutions in Liberia, who, when he was approached that, hey, we have passed the Convention on the Rights of People with Disability, and this convention calls for accommodating, people with disability in every sphere of our society. And so we think at the university we should, make some accommodation for REM and teaching of Braille to accommodate, the physical challenge people, into the university. And this precedent utterance was that the university is not for people with disability. The the government to establish another institution for that purpose. And I tell you that a few years after this president became visually impaired, and when he became visually impaired, he was an advocate preaching that the Braille should be taught at universities because he believed visually impaired persons can also positively impact the society. But when did he get to know? When did he get to know? Do not allow that time to reach for you. Your advocacy will be in vain because people will say, when did you get to know?
Amen.
Now you have the opportunity, you have the strength, and I talk to my viewers. I see I have online my sister-in-law, Comfort Briscoe. She's also from the U.S. She's also a strong. She's not an advocate in the sense of practicing the advocacy, but she's an advocate in her own community. She's a strong mouth pusher when it comes to freedom and justice. So she's online with us. I'm happy that Comfort Briscoe could join us. And these are some of the folks down in the United States that I will be linking to you, you know, for you people to begin to get us support this initiative that we are trying to build. I believe together we can make it stronger. Thank you so much, Bridget, for this time, allowing me to discuss Martin Luther King, who should be an American hero. Unfortunately, for you, he's now our hero. He's a global hero. He's a human rights champion. And we celebrate him.
Well, thank you so much. And you have been watching Human Rights Matters with Daniel Melvin Nyanway, Human Rights Officer for the United Nations of Liberia, West Africa. And we will talk to you soon.
So we'll be back.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
I think you're going to have to end it on your end.
Thank you.
You're going to have to end it on your end.
Okay, Bridget. Bye-bye. Thank you. And thank you to all our viewers. We love you all. Hope you can follow this program. We're coming once a month. We will have you informed. Follow Bridget's page because she's the organizer. She will be able to tell us the date and time we come on. So, Bridget, I will direct most of our followers to your page where you will bring more advertisement and more publication on our programs. Thank you very much. And
God bless you. God bless you.